moving to the cloud. All right, yes, good afternoon, class. We're excited to take you through digital forensics and investigations, commonly known as digital forensic investigation, or even cyber crimes or digital crimes investigation. So I will take you through this unit, and yes, at least we'll be getting time to do a number of tutorials, hands-on sessions. A number of them can be handled online. That's why I've amended a number of the slides, and you will notice that the slides are going to be different from even the ones of last semester, not the last year, to ensure that we have and we embed in the process, we embed in a lot of practicals and tools you can be able to download. We are going to use free software that is downloadable over the internet. And of course, I definitely look forward to the face-to-face sessions, which will start in the 5th week. So when the face-to-face sessions come, we shall reorganize a suitable time for the evening class so that it's convenient to your class sessions. All right. So in chapter 1, our main focus is on understanding the digital forensic profession and the investigation. We will see chapter 1 to 3 will cover quite a lot of general basics, but we will see how to carve them down into 2 so that we quickly start on the forensic process, and every step we will see how we reserve some time to be able to have 1 or 2 practicals at least every time we meet, and online. By end of this class, I've actually attached a list of tutorials we will have, and even software, so that we start downloading this software. The earlier we download them, the better. They are very small, 15 to maybe 120 MBs. So the earlier we start, I would want us to look at about 10 different software that we should be able to use, carry out digital forensics. So this is our general course outline that is picked from our course curriculum, and I would want to thank you very much for choosing security. You'll definitely have a lot you'll be able to cover. Okay. And feel free as we go along, you can type your questions in the chat room such that we are able to pick them up as well, or even unmute and get us up to date with where you're lost. For this particular class, by end of the class, there is a lot of echo. I don't know from where. Let me first check and see. Are you able to get a lot of echo still? Do we have some people who have logged on maybe twice? Because that would be, we would request them to log out of one to avoid, yes, Emmanuel, I see you have 2 devices. Emmanuel, it seems it's on your side. So I would suggest you better leave 1 device so that you keep with 1. Otherwise, the echo is so much on your side. So by end of this class, we want to describe the field of digital forensics. Quick definitions. We'll explain how to prepare digital forensic or computer investigation. We'll summarize the difference between public and private investigation. We'll explain the importance of maintaining a good professional conduct and some key core basics. We'll also look at why digital forensics is important and also look at the systematic process. Do you remember like system analysis and design? That gave us the life cycle, the step-by-step process in which you're able to develop a system. This one will take us through the step-by-step process in which we carry out a digital forensic investigation. Imagine, before I get there, let me quickly follow through. So we look at how to prepare for digital forensic investigation, and it's the steps. And you realize those steps are very basic. Sarah says the link needs permission. With Gmail as well, I'm not so sure how that is working out. Permission to just only click and enter. Let me wait for any other people that are having similar challenges, then we see. Okay, so we will explain some of the requirements for data recovery. We'll explain requirements for data recovery workstations and software. And finally, we'll also be able to just see how do we critique ourselves at the end of an investigation or when an investigation takes place. What kind of feedback do we give ourselves? Okay, so I was just saying that just as system analysis and design gave us a step-by-step process in which we go about to develop a system, then we will also look at the step-by-step process when a cyber crime or a digital forensic crime takes place. I'll give an example. An email is sent to someone, either abusing them or stalking them, and there is need for an investigation. So what happens? We will be able to get all this information on the step-by-step process by involving you experts now in the field to give us these procedures as well. Okay. Digital forensics is the application of computer science and investigative procedures for a legal purpose involving the analysis of digital evidence after proper search authority, chain of custody. I just want to quickly highlight some key core items here. We have, of course, we are carrying out digital evidence. That's what we want to do. We've given an example. Imagine someone is sending bad emails or even WhatsApp or on Zoom, not even Zoom, but any digital form. And so our aim is to see how can we go about an investigation. Our main aim is to get evidence. That is what digital forensic investigation is all about. We are interested in analyzing the whole process, analyzing the place, and getting this evidence. That is what the courts of law will use. And that's where they say they must follow a proper search authority. We shall look at that. There is what we call, there is what we term as also the chain of custody. Who has given you authority and how are you following through on a step-by-step process? Okay, I see Sarah says you need permission. This form can only be viewed by viewers. Because I created it using the CIT email, it should be open. It should be open if you're using your MOOC address. So you may just need to change your Gmail that you're using. Look at what you're using to log in. Try it and we see, because I see some people have been able to register while some have not been able to register, because that's the only way I will be able to pick out your information. Okay, so our chain of custody, we look at it as well. Who gives you the process and why are you going to search a particular venue? Is it an office? Then we'll also see validation with mathematics, not only just with mathematics, but it's with tools. And these tools will, at the back end of them, that's where the mathematics is. For us that are the users of these tools, we will not use or even view the math. Repeatability is also equally very important in terms of when you submit this case to court, your evidence, they should equally be able to follow the steps you have followed and they get the same procedures or the same answers. That is what repeatability is all about. And of course, we aim at reporting this particular case to the courts of law. That is why we are looking for evidence. The kind of evidence we are looking for is mainly digital in nature to help and support a particular computer-related crime or digital-related crime. The ISO in 2012 accepted it as one of the key core standards that can be carried out, that forensics are actually one of those that are accepted. We'll be able to see in Uganda, we also accepted it because we have corresponding policies, as we will shortly be able to see. And it's because of having such policies that as a nation, we're able to allow for that process. Yes, what allows us in within the legal world to be able to come up with the search warranties. Imagine maybe there is a theft somewhere in someone's house. What allows us to be able to have this authorization? It's because of the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment that took place ages ago in the US Constitution was the first one in the whole world to set precedents to allow people to search and search victims' houses or offices, or even an individual, and to pick information, which we call seizure. This is always in the first step, where we identify the hard disks or the digital devices we need, and then we seize them to collect information or a copy. Thereafter, we will use that to give us, or for us to now generate the amount of evidence that we need. So separate search warranties may not be necessary for digital evidence. In terms of another law for it to be rewritten, no. The laws we currently have, whether it's in US or even in Uganda, our computer law, our, Sarah, I think you better register in the chat room, then I will pick the details. Write there your names, your registration number, student number, email address, and phone number. That is all I was speaking. And then we will see if that can be fixed, or maybe if I can use and create it in another general Gmail account. Okay. So this Fourth Amendment is what allows us as digital forensic security experts to be able to search any premise, to search and find out and get us as much evidence as we may need for a particular case. Let us look at Uganda's situation. In Uganda's IT legislation, we have a number of laws and regulations. There are now about 10 of them. They do allow us, look at some of them. Number 2, the Computer Misuse Act defines and tells us what are computer crimes. What are computer crimes? When do you break them? So in case someone takes you on, they stipulate and tell us exactly what each one of these crimes exactly involves. The Computer Signatures Transactions Act signature, and also the Electronic Transactions Act allows for digital forensics. Data Privacy and Protection Act 2019 also allows for that process as well. So it's very important that we know what kind of legislative atmosphere we have. I imagine you covered this with Florence when you're looking at ethics and the legal actions within the ICT world. And these are the ones that give us the right to carry out any digital investigation. Digital forensics and other related disciplines. Yes, it's true. We don't stand alone. We are not self-sufficient as a team. We work with several other security courses to enable us carry out thorough forensic investigation. Because we involve different items, we're always investigating digital devices. By collecting data securely, we examine the suspect's data to determine details such as the origin, where did that image come from, where did the photograph come from, who made it, what continent, the content, the size. If it's deleted information, we should be able to retrieve everything. That is what we focus on in digital forensics. Then, of course, we must present this information in the courts of law. Again, there are steps and procedures that the courts have. Our own is to, first of all, pick it, preserve it, make copies, and be able to present it in the courts of law. And that's what we call being admissible. The evidence we collect can always be nullified, meaning that it will have not passed the admissibility properties. We will have not followed the right process. You don't just jump and hear, oh, there was a theft that took place in a particular place. Let me quickly go and jump in with my forensic tools and see what I can investigate. No, you must always follow procedures. When you don't follow procedure, court always throws out your evidence. And so you don't want to present digital evidence that is going to be thrown out. It will be a waste of time. We apply the laws to digital device practices. And also these are very, very helpful in making sure that we work with them. We mainly work with the legal team in presenting this digital evidence. Digital forensics is different from data recovery. Data recovery is only just part of the forensics. We will be able to see, and you will also retrieve information from whether flash disks or hard drives. It's one of the first practicals we shall be able to do. These involve retrieving information that was ever deleted. Do you know, either by mistake or lost due to power surges or a server crashing, you will always retrieve this data. So data recovery, there is no way data can fail to be recovered. Actually, you will see the moment, a minute, please. Okay, so the moment you carry out any digital data recovery, from the time the device was manufactured, all information will be retrieved. Whether it is your hard drive, we shall be able to do that. Whether it is a flash disk, we will be able to do that, and it will be very interesting for you to see. Even if someone ever put a flash disk, used it anywhere, it will still pick that information. Whether you formatted it 100 times, it will retrieve everything. That is part of digital forensic investigation. So data recovery is just a part of the forensics, because what do we search for? We are looking for evidence. So in this slide here, we are just trying to say that the digital forensic field is multidisciplinary. We need lots of knowledge in different areas to help us make the digital forensic investigation possible. You need the intrusion detection, whether it is network intrusion detection or incident response, and you're doing that course unit. You also need digital investigation, the one I'll be taking you through. Also risk management, vulnerability. I assume some parts of this were covered. So these three key areas are very important in getting the forensic investigation going. So these are the three areas we want to briefly explain about, and how do they meet with each other to add a lot of value to what one is dealing with. In vulnerability and threat assessment or risk management, we test and verify the integrity of standalone workstations or network and network servers. In terms of, our aim is to see how can we assess that an attack took place. You're an IT expert, you're the forensic person on the team. How are you able? That is the vulnerability assessment. Hackers came, picked money, or deleted, picked an email, or are even currently having an attack on the system. How do we do that? And that's why we are saying we test this by testing for integrity. It's actually one of the very first tutorials we are going to start with in the next session. Network intrusion, you're covering that. We will not be able to look at that in detail. The focus there is to detect any intruders, either by using honey pots, or by using snoots, by using your firewall. There are so many ways in which you can detect that, yes, an intruder on the network has actually logged on. And all these will feed into the forensic investigation and the evidence. Then we have digital investigation. In digital investigation, our focus is on managing the investigation and conducting the forensic analysis of the system suspect that contain this evidence. That is extremely very important, because our own is to look at what do you have, how can we collect it, we save it, write our report and submit to the attorneys. Those are the people in court to help in judging if this is worth evidence to take you on. I'll give you an example. Look at the current ongoing case that we have of Pastor Bujingo. There is a lot of digital forensics involved in it, that even the legal people, that's why you see they are writing to UCC, because they need digital evidence, software, hardware evidence, that yes, a second wedding took place. That's the evidence they are looking for. And so presenting it to the courts of law, together with any other items, are part of the evidence that yes, something exactly took place. Okay, so a quick history of digital forensics. When did it actually become a very important area? It began way back, of course, in the 70s when the law was approved, but until the 1990s, when internet became very, very rampant, that is when we noticed the kinds of cases that are cyber related, the kind of crimes greatly increased. and this forced them to become very tough, and that this was first involved at the 1990 conference by the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists. They're the ones that introduced and trained people on software for digital forensics. Before, it was work that was only left for what? Only FBI, only for the army to handle, police to handle. But now they opened it up and realized, you know, the cases are more than one, more than 100. They need more experts out there because the internet is here to stay and the cases are on the rise. So IRS still also created, it's one of the organizations. They created the search warranty programs. How far do you go searching someone? If there is a mobile money theft, how far do we go in searching for this information? The ASR data created expert witnesses also for Macintosh, those who are using Macs. iLooks is one of the tools that they use also in criminal investigation. The other tool they commonly use that we will be able to also see is Access Data Forensics Toolkit. It's one of the most popular commercial products. The one we will use here, we call it OS Forensics. It is open source and only valid for 30 days. I'm not so sure how we are going to keep with it beyond our 5 weeks, but at least we will use it for our hands-on sessions that we will be able to have. Okay. Understanding our case laws. So the existing laws can't keep up with the rate of technology's changes. What do they mean? IT keeps changing a lot. Information systems keep changing a lot. And you know, as they keep changing a lot, it becomes very, very important for us to see, it becomes very important to see that these trends are taken care of. And so in digital forensics, we need to have a statute or a particular case of law that works out for any country. In Uganda, just a moment, please. In Uganda, we will be able to see that the very first case that got us the precedence was a case, and it was an election case that was brought forward by Lucy Akello, the current member of parliament. Lucy Akello had an issue where they had, there was a problem with the election results. And she had a lot of digital evidence. She had a lot of digital evidence together with the team, together with the people that were also invigilating that whole process. And so they compiled it, they took it to the courts of law, and I tell you, that case in 2015, 2016 has now set a precedence in the legal world that yes, Uganda has capacity to handle any digital forensic crimes that take place as a country. So in developing the digital forensic resources, it's very important to see where we get. Let me first go back to our previous slide. The existing laws, those we've seen for Uganda's case, and we've seen that also each country has to first of all start with an initial case, then others go on, and of course the legal people, the judges, will keep on referring to that particular case and say, because you set a precedence of this and the law says this, then they feel free to go on with the entire process. Okay, so of course they went and did the search and seizure, and thereafter they were able to come up with enough evidence that they needed. And I'm telling you, they nullified those elections. They went back, and Honorable Lucy Akello became a member of parliament. Up to date, she's still a member of parliament representing FDC in the courts of law. So for Uganda's case, she set a precedence for us. We need to learn as digital experts, forensic and security students. We need to see, where do we get this knowledge to supplement our information, to supplement the knowledge that we know. We pick it from different places. There are mainly three. One, we can develop and maintain contacts with computing networks. Here we will see some of them that are public or even private. Of course, with other investigators who will share what the trends are of criminal investigation and the new tricks and of crimes, because every other year the tricks are increasing. Then also you can also be able to consult outside experts. Outside experts give one a lot of information. So next we want to look at, how do we handle cases in the public area vis-a-vis in the private area, private sector? Public cases that are digital oriented are those that are presented to government. In government, the arm that is responsible for handling digital investigation, there are several of them. The one that leads in getting the mandate is NITA Uganda, that is the National IT Authority Uganda. They're the ones that have a lot of the machinery. Though we have other labs, government has a number of forensic labs in police, with the army, because they're always taking items for forensic investigation. All those are always there. So government has some tools. However, again, the labs are too few. The labs are too few to provide and cater for the high increasing number of cases. And that's why they're encouraging a lot of the private sector to take on this kind of investment in digital forensics. So we shall see that in digital forensics for the private sector, these ones mainly focus on laws or crimes, computer-related crimes, on violation of the laws in an organization, the policies. Or you were watching, like, for example, we shall see some quick examples there. Do not watch pornography while you're working. Do not access your private email addresses as you're doing your work. Those are things that an organization takes serious, but what is the evidence? And that's why you see private investigators do that kind of work, because they want to show that, yes, as the IT department, we set up laws and all the members are actually compliant. So understanding these law enforcement agencies are very important, because as we said, without following the law, our evidence will be thrown out. So when conducting public sector investigations, one must understand the laws of the computer-related crimes. In Uganda, our law was passed in 2011. In the USA in 1986, other countries, their laws were set in different years. They state the processes, they give us guidelines on how to search and seize the information that you need or the people that you need. They also guide you on the steps of building a criminal case. So by the time we get to wind up, we will see if we can get we will get some guest lecture. We will get a guest lecture by the teams from NITA. I will ask the legal team together with the security team at NITA to have a presentation, at least a 1 hour to 2 hours presentation to take us through. It will have to be a combined class to take us through what are the steps, what is Uganda's law, because this is the context. And that's why you see, if you look at the previous notes of last year, I've cut out a lot of what was not Ugandan. It didn't add a lot of value in our case. Contextualizing it to Uganda's situation is extremely important. So a criminal investigation usually begins when someone finds evidence of or a witness of a particular crime. Definitely, it's either the witness or the victim who takes an allegation to police. Imagine you carry out a financial transaction, either maybe money is being transferred, and then you realize that, oh, the money never ever reached where it was going to, like mobile money, and it was sent to a wrong person, or someone sent you money and instead it went to a wrong person. Theft took place of a kind. So where do we start from? Whenever you find that you have any kind of case, imagine you're walking, your phone is snatched away. Where do you start from? The first place, go and visit the police, the nearest police station where you either stay or any, you're not limited actually, because one is to secure your SIM card. You leave it there, it can be used by thugs. So the first thing in the legal process, first report a particular case, whether you're a witness or a victim, report it to police. The police will then come and find out and just quickly review or interview the complainant, and they will ask you, please write a report. Was it theft? Was it, I don't know, burglary? But as long as it involves anything that has hardware or software, that is what classifies it to be a digital crime. And there we swing into action to go and pick our evidence. A report is processed and management decides to start an investigation or a log of information in the police blotter. They will open for you a file, give you file number. Usually it's according to the date, today's date, but they'll give you a number based on the categorization or classification of the crimes that they have had that day. If you're the 30th person to complain and say, oh, thieves broke into our house, pick the following gadgets, they make it, maybe if it is the 5th one, it will be 5, stroke today's date. So that is how they keep each of the crimes. So the first thing we do is to make sure we follow our legal process. Otherwise, you can't just take someone to court. They will ask you, where do you start from? Did you report to police? No. Sorry, go and do first things first. They will send you back. The private sector investigation, we've mentioned, these ones mainly address policy violation and litigation issues in terms of someone maybe is nearly going to be fired, and what is the reason? Because they were always doing the wrong thing, sharing their usernames and password with maybe a stranger somewhere who carries out an attack, a denial of service attack on the organization. So that kind of thing is a big challenge. Wrongful termination is a big issue. This is where the private sector will come in. The private investigators will come in. Someone was fired because of not following, not doing this and the other. And that's why as digital forensic experts, our own is to make sure we follow the law, we follow the steps, work with police, and to make sure that actually together with the attorneys to ensure that we get all the details. So private sector usually handles some of these small investigations: email harassment, falsification of data, gender and age discrimination, embezzlement, sabotage, destruction of systems or computers, industrial espionage or trespassing. So where you find that government has limited facilities, they don't have they are not in position to handle the current problems. That is where they are saying, please take the case to a private investigator, pay them and you get evidence and open up a case. Because I'll tell you, if you go to use government's investigation, they may have backlogs. They will tell you, sorry, we shall come to handle your case in 2024. You're like, really? You will have lost interest in the case. So they tell you, sorry, if it's really urgent, please kindly get a private investigator to handle the digital forensic investigation. That is all. So you find that where government's hand is always tied and they don't have enough capacity, that is where the private sector works to help people get evidence. So businesses try to reduce the risk of litigation by publishing and maintaining policies. And that's where they say, you know, don't just aim at saying, oh, we are going to arrest students for doing this and the other. No, before you arrest these people at the offices, at least first give them what the policy is. University Council has said we will have, let me give you something that an example of what is currently happening. University Council passed and said, no, this semester we will still under study, 5 weeks online, 5 weeks face-to-face. And so they phased them to avoid a lot of congestion. First years are beginning, then I think in between also second years begin, then third years we will go after our 5 weeks. So it is a policy that has been written and they've sent on social media, they've put in papers, they've put anywhere. So in case an investigation is to take place, this private sector would actually do very well in handling such a case because it's a small policy that was formed at the institution level. So most important policies define rules for using the company's computers, networks. When you went for industrial training, some of you who went for face-to-face industrial training, you were able to recognize that you were able to find some rules. Do not drink and eat in the computer lab. Do not pour water, I don't know something. There are some basic rules. So those rules are what they term as acceptable use policies. And the advisors, please put them everywhere. The best place to put rules of an organization is in the bathroom or even at the back end of the door. So when you're seated doing your business, you're able to see the rules there. For ladies next to the mirrors, as they're doing their makeup, they can be able to read these computer rules. So you need to work out all possible means. Others have actually devised ways of putting them at the bottom of every email. That is where they will put those computer rules about an organization. Some have them as screenshots, some have printouts on every desk, on every table, just to make sure that everyone knows. Because in the courts of law, ignorance is no defense. You can't say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know, so I did this. No, they will still charge you and tell you, sorry, you need to pay this amount of money if you need bail. Otherwise, go to prison, and they will take you on and they handcuff you and off you go. What are we saying? In every organization, it's very important to have these rules and policies. Do not trap people. Give it to them, and they know that these are the do's and these are the don'ts. Line of authority, we are defining it here, and you must know it. What is a line of authority? This states who has the legal rights to initiate an investigation, who can take possession of evidence, who can have access to evidence. It's not everyone. Finish your bachelor's degree, go and get the relevant certifications. It's when you now qualify to join and be one of those who can now write fully accepted reports by the courts of law. They will ask, do you have the relevant bachelor's degree? You submit evidence. They will ask you for all the papers that you have that allow you to carry out investigation. Otherwise, you don't follow the lines of authority. We've mentioned that the court case will be dropped and you lose badly. Here are examples of some of the warning banners, warning people. This is an example in the US government, but of course for Uganda as well, they have their own. Put up warning banners anywhere. You're about to access this and this and this and this. Make sure you're in a secure environment. Do not share your password. Have you seen those small basic laws? Yes, save them and put them up in so many ways so that the organization team can be able to pick out on them. Our professional conduct is very important as security experts. We must make sure that we keep our ethics, our morals, and standards. Check our behavior. We need to be very objective. We need to be very truthful. That is the core focus. Be objective and do not take sides. No, your own is to package and get evidence. So once you present it, it's okay. If they want more, if court says we need more information on this, go back and carry out more investigations. So your professional conduct is very, very important. Focus on getting the truth. Do not participate in telling lies and deleting and say, we didn't find this. You're trying to tamper with evidence. That's why we said from that whole process, repeatability is extremely important. In the courts of law, they will get a third party. They say, please run for us the same forensic tools. Install on another machine, attach this device, and we see, do you also get the same report? So if you've tampered with it, your information will come out, your details will come out, and you will be embarrassed. So that is why from the beginning, we are talking about our ethical conduct being very, very important. Our chain of custody is very important as well. And here we've said, this is the root of evidence, the route in which that evidence will take from the time you find it till a case is closed or even leaves court. We never delete a case. No. I'll give an example of that needed DNA. DNA is part of forensic investigation. Someone claims that, my father is minister so-and-so, so-and-so. I'll give an example. If someone comes up and says, no, my father was the late governor of Bank of Uganda, the late Professor Mutevere. So you must submit evidence, and your evidence can only be submitted with DNA. Someone wants to tie on your family and say, oh, you have this kind of siblings from somewhere. You must be wise and ask for DNA. So you must be able to follow the process needed to get that kind of DNA. Otherwise, we've seen you don't follow the chain of custody, the evidence is cancelled, and you'll have wasted a lot of money. You have to go back to square zero. And now I've viewed some examples of some of the policies that can be violated. Surfing the internet, sending personal emails. Do you remember what happened during the elections when Trump and Hillary were there? They had a problem with emails. They were sending emails. Hillary was sending emails to her private email address on her private server, sending some information, and it was violating the laws of the land. So you find that private investigators are the ones who would handle such kind of internal policy breakages of violations. Using computers to attack someone or for personal tasks. It's a company organization's computer. You're using it to do your own business. That is violation of the laws. Once they have evidence, you go, they pick the laptop, do a forensic investigation, and write a report. It's your word versus the evidence they have found. It will be very, very unfortunate if you're saying no. It's better for one to follow the right procedures. Why digital investigation? Why is it important? We look at 6 key reasons. We may have so many others, but here we've limited ourselves to only 6. Why digital investigation? 1, to understand how did these intruders enter the system. Who gave them a username or password, or did they just guess? Did they hack in? How did they get into the system? Number 2, to obtain information, you need to justify a trap and trace of either phone line or any kind of any kind of digital hardware that the intruders were using. You want to ask yourself, where did the attackers come from? What information or data was accessed or even stolen? You want to get as much information to justify that tapping and trapping. Number 3, you want to discover why the intruder has chosen a particular victim's computer. Why did you carry out maybe a virus attack on computer XYZ? What networks, what system files or applications were even affected? You're very interested in that. Number 4, you want to gather as much evidence of intrusion as possible to obtain information that can narrow your list of suspects. Very important. Usually you want to find out, is it an internal employee? Because literature has shown us that over 90% of all criminals in digital forensics are internal employees. Someone who is disgruntled carries out the leakage of the company's information. So here, number 4, you want to identify a leak within an organization. And if it was not the organization members, then you want to exonerate them and say, thank God, in this case, it was not an internal person that gave out these details. The hackers maybe use this tool to do this and the other. Number 5. Number 5 is somewhere, okay, I see here we have 2 more. Number 5 is to document the damage to the victim caused by the intruder. To what extent has the information been damaged? You want to find out the time, the amount of efforts taken by the victim in investigating this evidence. And our focus is in determining the amount of damage and documenting it. Usually we quantify it in terms of money. We made losses. I'll give you an example. When you go to the Uganda Police Services email website, under the reports, download the most recent report of 2020, the annual report on crimes. Then search for computer crimes, search for cyber crimes. You will see they quantify, is it theft worth this amount? Is it, I don't know, cyber harassment worth this amount? Mobile money, criminals worth this amount? So their aim is to quantify. That's why we carry out digital forensics. Next is to assess the possible damage that we've seen. The 6th one, to find out whether the attackers are still on the network, and you want to reconstruct the scene. Sometimes it's an active attack. I imagine you've seen the 2 types of attacks. You can have a passive attack where you have sniffers who just get in and keep sniffing. They keep stealing information. They are not doing anything. They first always start as sniffers or passive attackers. Then they now become active attackers. And sometimes by the time you're doing investigation, the attackers may actually be online. So you want to find out, are the attackers still on the network? And you try to reconstruct the scene, because you must write down a full report as the IT expert. I added this one in as well, that we're looking at a summary of the 6 key core reasons as to why we perform digital forensics. They're exactly the same that we have seen, and you'll cover them as well. We look at Locard's principle in digital forensics. Locard is one of the oldest, actually he's the oldest professor that came up with a principle that supports digital forensics. He says that, or his exchange, the Locard's exchange law states that when 2 objects come in contact with one another, a cross transfer of physical evidence can occur. In terms of a victim comes together with a phone. there is something that happens. You'll either send emails or there is some evidence that you will leave. Look at DNA. If a vehicle knocks another vehicle, using DNA of the vehicle of the paint, they can find out which one actually carried out or caused the accident. So Locard's law actually is the one that guides us in digital forensics, that every time two objects collide, there is evidence there. Even whether it is me or you, the moment you take someone and say, oh, they did this and the other, as long as there was any collision, I touched someone, or my DNA will remain in that place. So this is Locard, Edmond Locard, also known as the Sherlock Holmes of France. He came up with that principle that states that every contact by a criminal leaves behind a trace. Look at the illustration of what they're having of the trace that Locard mentioned, that you see the gentleman here with his magnifying glass. He can be able to see that, yes, there were footprints here and there's something that happened. There was a collision of two contacts. Okay, Locard still also says that every contact leaves a trace, exactly the same thing as the previous slide. And his law came into existence in 1910. That is when it was published. And he's the director of the very first criminals laboratory in existence in France, where he said that with contact between two items, there is always an exchange. You sit with someone in a vehicle. Where you sit, you always leave your DNA of your cloth. Whether it is a vehicle that is traveling, it leaves its DNA of its tires. Shoes leave their DNA. Vehicles leave their paint. In case it's a rape case, all our fluids have DNA, be it saliva. Give a very simple example of what is happening in Locard's principle. It's what we are using now to test for COVID. The moment, because DNA is always there, that means we got ourselves in touch with someone who was infected, and it affects our DNA. And that is why you see they're able to swab and go and carry out the DNA tests, which are quite expensive. That is a very good example of what Locard's exchange is. Okay. We are midway. We are soon completing the process. Next, we want to focus on what is the process. And we will see even in the next class, from now on up to the last class we will have. This is the process, the methodology we will keep talking about. And of course, by end of this class, even your assignment is clearly made there. I advise you to do it in groups, and we will submit it by next week. It's exactly only 1 week for us to have this group assignment on the methodologies of digital forensic investigation. We still define it here as a process of, it's a step-by-step process of conducting a computer incident investigation in which someone, of course, is suspected to have a computer intrusion. Someone got into a computer, did something. What is the evidence? That I logged in and used the company computer to send an email about maybe a business, and you're taking me on that step-by-step process. I remember telling you at the beginning of this class, just as we had the step-by-step processes in system analysis and design that gave us a framework or a methodology of developing a system. This one, we look at that methodology, the step-by-step process in which we investigate a particular incident. A computer crime has taken place. What is the evidence that actually it happened? These are the steps that you'll also be able to look at. Step number 1, we start right from the bottom. Identify. Someone goes and identifies that, I woke up in the morning. I'll give you a scenario. Just last year, 30th of September, we slept, woke up at home, and we found all our gadgets were stolen. About 5 laptops were stolen, phones were taken, 3 tablets were stolen. It was a sad moment. The most we could do is go and report at police and say, you know something, we were attacked. So when a computer crime happens, the first thing is to carry out identification. And of course, in the next classes, even in this class, we will see what happens at each of these stages. When we identify where that case is and the location, we now go and seize, we carry out the seizure. You remember the law that we talked about, the 4th Amendment law, the one that allows us to seize information or even seize hardware or software devices. That is the one that helps us to carry out this seizure at the computer crime scene. Is it a hard drive that you're using, a flash disk, any storage device? We put it up there. The 3rd step is authentication. Just confirming that, yes, we have followed the legal procedure, because I told you we work with the legal attorney when we are getting this evidence for court. We need to make sure that documents have been signed by the courts of law. Otherwise, we are wasting our time in carrying out a forensic investigation. Now, the core lab work starts at this level of acquisition. In acquisition, we get that hard drive or any of the hardware where we suspect it was saved or the computer they used. We make a copy. That process of making a copy is what we term as acquisition. I don't want to talk about it a lot because we have several steps we are going to see, even an example of a software, which we will quickly flip through. But beginning of next class, we are going to start with our practical. Please, I advise you, come with your machines, log on, and we are going to install this software. I've given you a list of software we are going to have, and we are going to follow them step by step. Simple tools. Analysis. After we've picked our information in analysis. Yes, James, what is it? Okay, that was a lot of noise. Analysis, we only examine the evidence that we have collected in acquisition. After we've picked up or we've searched for what we need, then we present this case, and finally we preserve it for further, we go and save it safely. So this is the core methodology that we cover when we are looking at computer forensic investigation. So we have these steps for problem solving. We need to make an initial assessment. James, in case you have a question, please kindly put it in the, let me just, in case you have a question, kindly type it in the chat room so that we don't get distracted. We have about 40 minutes and we should be done. Okay, so we make an initial assessment about the type of case you're investigating. Is it an email where maybe a boss is talking badly up to someone? You either do this, or if not, this happens. Is it a sexual harassment email, for example, from a lecturer or from a student to another student? There must be some initial assessment about the type of case you're investigating. Is it money laundering? Is it a fraud case? The aim is to determine a preliminary design or approach of that particular case and discuss it together with the team. That's why you see computing is a lot of group work, a lot of teamwork. You can't do an investigation alone. You are part of the team. Police needs us. Private investigators need us with our IT skills, because we add a lot of value in helping them present this as evidence before the courts of law. Determine a detail of checklists. Yes, when you're going to the courts of law or even to the attorney to give you permission they will ask you, do you have a particular email or particular information we are looking for? That they write down properly, such that when you're going to search, do not divert and start going to look for ABCD, which was you. If you were set to go and pick X and O, do not go and start picking ABCD, YZ, I don't know some, because you just searched someone's computer. No, only pick only that court has given us. We shall look at it within our next class, and we see under scope creep. You're given a limit, your scope is limited. Only search for this. Do not go beyond the boundary. Of course, you need to determine what resources do you need. Do I have a right blocker? Do I have a right blocker? We shall see its reason. Why do we need it? And we shall even be able to see and share with you some information about a right blocker. Obtain a copy of this evidence drive. That one we have seen. That when you go and find they have a flash drive, that's what you're investigating. You go and make a copy of it. Then go to your lab and use your tools to get us more evidence of what you have found there. Identify the risks. Mitigate and minimize some of the risks. The vulnerability risks in case information is going to be stolen or lost. Then test the design and analyze or recover any digital evidence of what you need to actually do to this particular case. Investigate the data you recover, complete our case report, and critique the case. Please, these steps here are not for you to cram. The one to pick out are these standard methodologies. Are we clear? Here they are trying to reinterpret them on their own, but I nearly wanted to delete some of these steps because what is important is in following through. Assessing a case, you need to understand the situation in which you're in. When did the case happen? What happened? Is it a husband who killed a wife, or a wife who killed a husband, or children who killed? You understand the situation, the nature of case. Get specifics about the case. Find the type of evidence. You need to know the type of format of the hard disk. Is it FAT? Is it NTFS? Know the kind of format of disk that you are going to pick information. Also, location of the evidence. So by the time you set off, you go with your full toolkit, knowing the nature of what you expect. So based on these few details that, of course, the complainant or victim will have, or witness will have submitted to police in writing, now you can determine what the case requires. We plan for our investigation. Acquiring the investigation is very, very important. You need to have access to that hard drive, that storage device, and that's where we say, that is where we do our real work. Is it a website? Someone has defamed, like website defamation. You always see it on social media. Oh, this celebrity went and was abusing the other celebrity. I don't know about this. They can open up for you a case. However, in the courts of law, they will need evidence. And that is where they will need your evidence that is digital oriented, because it was on Twitter, it was on Facebook, and that is the evidence you want to submit or to investigate. We shall look at some of those tools that can help us pick out a lot of information as to where this kind of reports came from. Then, of course, don't forget to transport now the evidence to the labs, because we've said just make a copy, leave the original hard disk at the, connect the person's computer. For you, you've picked what you need, your copy, and go to do your work in the lab. Leave them to do their work. Don't say, we are taking all the computers. No, even if you take them, you seize them for only maybe a few hours, bring them back and they continue with their work. Your own was only just to make a copy. I'll give an example. URA actually takes on a lot of forensic experts and security experts. Many businesses do not want to pay taxes. So what happens? They will, once there's an issue, they will take your business on and give it, they call forensic experts. Please just go and visit, maybe Sudil, or go and visit, I don't know, that business X. And I'm telling you, from the forensic investigation, as long as you have any IT device, they will pick out every transaction, whether you delete, I told you, they will just give you a whole bill. Sorry, you were not telling us the truth. We've come, our team carried out a forensic investigation, and these are the new reports. I'm telling you, and it becomes a very big mess to the team. Prepare your forensic workstation. That is where we said, after you've picked your evidence, you go back to your workstation in your lab. Retrieve evidence from the secure container. Of course, you need to have carried it in a secure container. Make a copy of this evidence. Return the evidence to the secure container. Produce copies of evidence with the computer forensic tools that you use. I'll give you a story. Not only, actually, it may even have happened to you. Someone may actually, I'll give an example that students told me of. Students were doing betting, betting, and they wanted to get money. So somehow, like now, there was this recent bet they were having about who is going to win the African Cup of Nations. So I'm telling you, the betting companies, there was one time the students went there and they were like, oh, it's me who has won. I've come to collect my 5 million. The person appeared with the original receipt. Do you know what happened? With that original receipt, they decided that because they wanted to hide the evidence, the man just got the evidence and swallowed it. He chewed the paper. He looked at it, he saw, yes, this is the right number. He saw he was going to make a loss. He just chewed it and said, the case is finished, go to courts of law. You have no evidence. What shows that you won once your evidence has been taken? That's why when you're having any case, you never go with the original copy, go with photocopies. Whether it is in court, people always eat checks, always eat the evidence. Why they're trying to hide this evidence? And once there is no evidence, I'm telling you, there is no case to present in court. So be very, very aware about how people can be very dubious. Now, once you have your evidence, we document it in a form that we call our evidence custody form. Our evidence custody form is a document that helps us to write down the details of what has been done, where you got this disk, etc., and the copies of forensics, everything. We have two types. And by the way, these are needed in our chain of custody, and they are part of the chain of evidence forms. So we have two types of forms. A single evidence form, this one will only you'll only write items on only one page, meaning that it's only maybe a laptop that was seized and you're writing your story about that one single item. Multiple evidence form is for those items where you picked 10, 15 items when you went to the crime scene. This is an example of how this form will look like. In this case, let me just see. In this case, this is a multiple form. Do you see how it has items here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 10. You're writing the item, its serial number, the vendor, the model, etc. A single form will only have item 1. When we have an item 1, then you write details about that item 1. Look at it here. Look at in within. Let me quickly annotate and I show you what I'm looking at here. Look at what I'm saying. This is the part here. Look at this part here. I can only write serial number 1. Then I will type here, maybe it's our computer, something, or a flash drive. That is all I will type in within the details of one item. Now, leaving that in mind, let me take you back to our previous step, and that is the one of all the 10. Do you notice the difference? Do you see how this one has up to 10 items? that you can write here up to 10 different items in this form. So a multiple form allows us to write evidence concerning many, more than one item, while a single form, a single evidence form allows us to write that of only one item, okay? Our evidence bag, this is where we keep our evidence. We want to keep our hard drive in a very safe place. Keep it in an anti-static bag or an anti-static pad or a cushioned container. It must be padded in terms of it must have a cushion because it's a hard drive you have. It's a camera, it's the storage device, a memory drive. It is the type of device that you have that you don't want to break. Once it drops in water, all the evidence is gone. So you must save it very well in a proper, well-sealed off bag. And you will be able to see several of these in the next sets of classes. Look at what we picked, what I picked now as an example. You have seen, I imagine you may have seen the way they sell and where they store hard drives. Store it there once you have evidence of someone on a particular hard drive you're carrying. Seal it, those are seals to ensure that no one tampers with it. This way you put it in a bag and you're able to transport it safely to the labs because you don't want information to come and or you don't want the information to get destroyed. Some procedures for private investigators. As investigators, one needs to develop those forms. Remember the forms, the custody, the chain forms? Yes, you must develop them. Police may have their forms, but you need to form your own. You must develop procedures and informal checklists. You must focus on covering all issues that are high-tech driven. So ensure that you do a very good job, identify all the hard drives that you will need that are having any storage component because you need copies of them and you proceed to the lab. The attorney is the other that I mentioned that is important. The attorney is the police. Just a moment. Sorry about that. I was mentioning that the attorney is very important. The attorney is the one that gives us the rights. Because if we don't work with the attorney, we don't work with the magistrates. I'll give you an example. Where are you located? Are you in Makindye Division? Your attorney in Makindye Division is where police will go to get that authorization to allow us to go and pick the evidence we need for a particular place. So work with the attorney. They will even guide you. How do you write the report in a legal language? They will even attach someone with you. Please work with so-and-so in the legal arm to get the evidence, that you need. Otherwise, if you're only with the computing team, you may not be able to write it properly because the legal people, you look at these last steps here, the last points, they find a problem in interpreting electronic data. For them, the legal people are used to reading lots and lots of books. For them, they're not used to handling digital evidence. So they need to help in showing you how do you document and write a report for it to be accepted by the legal arm. Steps for conducting this at the legal from the attorney's place. They will first of all have to request for a memorandum from the attorney to direct them to start an investigation. That is that document for authorization. They will request for a list of keywords that you're going to search for. If it's an email, they will ask you, okay, what is the email address? You should stipulate exactly what you're looking for, because I told you, don't go beyond the scope they told you to search for. Then initiate the investigation, analysis from the hard disk that you examine. Make 2 copies. We always tell people, it's good to make, I've given you an example of a receipt that was taken to a betting company and say, you see, I actually mentioned that Senegal was going to win. And how many penalties? 4, and the other one only 2. And they realize, oh my God, 10 million is gone. You just make a photocopy of your receipt, don't even appear. You say, no, let us go to the attorney and you're going to present the money there, because people are very dubious. The moment you give them the original one, that is it. They swallow it and you have no evidence. So it becomes extremely very hard. So you compare, now comparing hashes. This is what we are going to do in within testing for integrity. The file that you had and the original file that you have recreated on the disk, you have to compare it. You look out and carry out the hash value tests, which are the same as your integrity tests. That's why the courts of law are very clear. Without those integrity tests, however much evidence you provide, you must be very technical. And I tell you, you're going to enjoy this course unit, students, because we are going to look at the steps. Not only are we going to see these are the steps to follow, but we are also going to do and we are going to see with our eyes. And in our next class, I'll honestly tell us, please come with a flash drive that I'll tell you, even when we start face-to-face classes, we will want to have covered all our hard. We will want to have covered our theory so that we look at the theory and practical, so that by the time you finish these forensic classes, you can now go and carry out an investigation together with the team, because we shall have covered each of the steps together with the tools. Okay, so the attorney still goes back and tells us, okay, at the attorney's place, methodically, we need to examine every portion of that flash drive or hard disk. Extract. Sometimes they will even advise you, why don't you just keep it as an open scope? Scan everything, because you may find one letter that leads to an email that followed by another letter, followed by some images, followed by some. You may find there is much more for you to pick out on. So in such a case, tell them open scope, so that the information is very clear and your scope is open enough. Run these keywords in your search. We shall see there is always a search bar when you're doing the analysis. Type in what you're looking for and search for it. Search for it in places of the allocated spaces. There is also unallocated spaces. Unallocated spaces are like hidden locations. And I will show you how we can pick these hidden locations. With forensic tools, I tell you people, you will pick out everything that your computer has ever had. And I will be able to show it for you, even using your computers, using your flash drives. So for Windows operating systems, we use specialized tools. And here we want to go to analyzing a registry. A register, just like, have you seen the link I have sent you? I wish it was working. I would give you a list after the class and show you that these are the students register, the students who have attended today's class, but I will formulate it as well. So a registry shows you a list of all items that have ever been carried out, activities carried out on that computer. That is a registry. That is what you search. And we are going to do registry analysis. In the practicals, you'll see it's the very first practical we are starting with. We should be able to install it on the machine, quickly run through, pick our registry, analyze it, and we proceed on because we need evidence. The binary data that you pick out, it is in zeros, ones. It can also be in hexadecimal form. Is usually for files of different programs. Some of them can be as big as computer-aided drawings, the CAD diagrams. Like if it's for architects, those are big diagrams. You can locate the correct software that you will need to open up. And we shall also look at it towards the end, file extensions. I will take you through that software. How are you able to crack and know this is the file extension that this document is, even when it is hidden? We shall pick it up. And of course, we pick information, we've said, from allocated disk spaces and even hidden other unallocated disk spaces. All of them will appear. Of course, we have to interview the people. You interview the victims or even whoever is involved in that digital forensic case. Interview them. If it was in a house, you find out who closed the windows, who closed the doors, who last switched off the lights, who kept the devices in a particular place. That is the basic interviews, just to collect some fact finding. And usually the difference between interviews and interrogation, these come in telling us whether these come in form exactly to tell us when someone is still a suspect. We just interview you. Everyone will just interview you. When we now have evidence that, yes, you're the suspect, we want you to confess, we take you to Nalufenya for interrogation. And of course, the interrogation we need is not that one of Chiboko and the one we saw of Kakwenza and any other people, but they will now take you through some more tough questions of getting evidence. The role of an investigator, as we've seen, and many other roles, to instruct the investigator conducting the interview on what questions to ask. And we mainly have 6 questions we ask. We use the 5 Ws. We shall see it shortly towards the end when we are critiquing a case. The 5 Ws and 1 H are what guide us. What guide us are the 5 Ws and 1 H. What, why, who, where, when. Those are the 5 Ws. Then the H is the how. So those are the questions that we always keep asking the people who are involved in handling or in doing or who have carried out any of the victims or the witnesses. There are lots of ingredients for a successful interview. 1, you should learn to be patient throughout the session. Repeat or rephrase the questions. In all forms, we call it rephrasing the questions to 0. Rephrase the questions, turn them inside out, upside down, such that the witness can answer you in all forms. Rephrase it. You can be able to, even if it's in a local language, even be able to tell people, ask someone in their local language. Some people talk very well or understand even better when you speak the mother tongue. Is it Lunyoli? Is it Karamajong? Is it Alur? I don't know, is it Luganda? People understand the local language better. So that's why whenever there's an investigation, they'll also have people who know those languages. And I'll tell you, if you've ever lost a phone, I've lost a phone, I've gone to apply for my SIM card. They always, when the police is writing that case, they always ask you, which tribe? So I asked them, why are you asking for the tribe? Like, yes, if you appear in the courts of law, we need to get someone who speaks your tribe to explain to you, because they don't want someone to say you use too much sophisticated English. I didn't understand. That is why they always speak on your tribe. Being tenacious. By being tenacious, This means never give up. Never give up on a case. I don't know if you've ever watched any criminal investigations. You pick information, store, go away, come back after some months, continue the investigation until you get the truth. You'll hear people like on those videos, not even only videos, but they'll tell you a case that took place 5 years ago, the truth has only come out. A death case on something, investigation was ongoing. That is being tenacious. You're not in a hurry. As long as you pick what you need, then you can take your time and do the analysis to get the truth. Understanding the recovery process, we shall see how it works. And of course, all these and software. Computer forensic workstations will help us in doing the recovery. The last point there is on the right blocker. If you're using a Windows device, it's only when we need a right blocker. If you're using Mac computers or even Linux, you don't need to have a right blocker. What is a right blocker? A right blocker is a hardware device. It's both hardware and software that enables us to freeze information on that hard drive to make sure that no writing of data proceeds on this drive that you're going to use for evidence. You seize someone's machine, you get at the hard drive. The first thing you do, run it through a write blocker in terms of freeze, no adding information to this one until we've picked all that we need. Why? Because you don't want people to keep adding and changing every single day. No, you handle a case as per a particular date. I will always ask you, and even in tests it will come, what is the use of a write blocker? Please take note of it, and we shall see it again and again. And even I will illustrate to you how it looks like. Here are other requirements of what you will need in your lab at your workstation. Of course, if it is Windows, you'll need an XP Windows computer. We've seen the use of a write blocker to freeze the data on the hard drive so that nothing writes to it, and to prevent volatility or loss of information in transit. You will need data forensic acquisition tools, analysis tools. You will need target drives. Where are you going to save information? Do you have also other extensions of other external disks? Those are the target drives. Do you have the cables, the PATA and SATA cables? Those are the blue and gray cables or white cables that attach a hard drive to your computer. Is it USB drive? Is it HDMI drive? Any storage device drive that you will need. These are only but a few. A network interface card, USB ports, extras, of course, FireWire ports, SCIS cards, disk cards, all these cards or readers, editor tools. We shall give you a number of these tools. I told you minimum of 10 we will be able to see. And our focus is to see that we gather this information, especially at the first time when they tell you, oh, we are going with a team, there is something we are picking out on. The first thing we start with, we said, identify the original storage media, because our own, we're looking for hardware and software devices. That's what is digital. Make sure you complete our evidence custody form. You remember the evidence custody form I showed you? Either it is an individual item, the single, or the multiple for multiple cases. Then, of course, you must have storage device media. Store it somewhere, the copy. Then, of course, we've seen that you need to make a copy. We call it a bitstream. We shall see what a bitstream image is. An image is a copy. You know, like how we say, bring your certificate or your degree certificate. We want to see if it is a fake one, if it's an original one. So what do? We'll ask you to bring an original copy, even if you have a photocopy, just to help us verify. Otherwise, one may have gone to NASA and gotten more copies. So an image is a copy of the bitstream of the hard drive storage device that you have made. And of course, you need a forensic workstation, a very good state of the art, good RAM, a very up-to-date device to examine your work. And of course, securable evidence lockers. You need a cabinet, you need a drawer that is lockable, a safe where you can lock these devices so that no one just comes and burns the house because it has evidence. People do that. So gathering this evidence is still very key because we need evidence. When you go to the place and you're invited, first talk to the IT manager, interview him. How does your network work? How do you have your networks? How are they arranged? How many people do you, you work with the IT manager to fill in this evidence form because they're the ones who have invited you as a forensic team to come and carry out evidence. Place this evidence form that has been filled in and signed by the manager in a secure container. Then carry the evidence to the computer forensic lab. That's what we've seen. Then you complete your chain of custody, you attach your evidence, keep it under lock and key, I told you, because anyone can do anything where they know you're handling a particular case, people can disappear. Even information can also disappear. These are the copies, 2 sets of copies that we can have, bitstream copies or bitstream images. These are backups, these are copies, photocopies of the original hard drive. And we tell you when you're making these copies, do not make only one, make at least 2. So when you work on one, another one is also there to help us get that information very well. In case one is stolen, a moment, please. These are copies of the disks we're saying. So these disks are these are just showing photocopies. This first one is showing the original disk. Then see a disk image is here. Then a target disk is here. It's like when you take an original copy to a photocopier. The original copy is there, then you make other copies. And this takes place, the process of making these copies is what we refer to as the acquisition process. All you're doing is you're creating an image of that copy. We shall do something using our free tool next week. Acquiring an image of evidence media on our next class. First rules first, of course, preserve the original image, conduct your analysis, whether it is DOS or Linux or Windows acquisition tools. The first thing we said, if it is Windows tools, that means you need a write blocker to just make sure you freeze the information, that you do not have someone taking on your information and masquerading your information. That is very key when you're making this image. So the next slides are just giving us screenshots. If you're to use a particular software, here they are using ProDiscover. We don't have ProDiscover. ProDiscover is a paid-for tool. It's a licensed tool. We don't use it because we don't have the money to pay for it. That's why we shall use open source tools. In the lab, we also have a tool that was also installed last year by the IT team. That's access control to help us do all these forensics. So for us here, we shall use the free tools to do these forensics. So they're just giving us procedures. Really, it's not very helpful until you have, and we are going to do it ourselves. So as part of the procedures, you'll first of all click create image or capture image in this case. So when you capture the image, it asks you of which source drive, because we've told you in making an image, you're making a photocopy. Which device are you making? Is it a hard drive? Is it a flash disk? Next class, we want to look at a flash disk. How do we make this image of this flash disk? All we're doing is creating a copy of it. Do you want to, and of course you follow instructions. Do you want to make it, compress it in terms of, do you want to reduce its size? In which type of document do you want to save it? We shall see. You click, you keep following the procedures anyway. You click next, next. There is no need for us to even go and cram that, oh, after this, click next. After, no. Just like when you're installing any device, the instructions are very clear. Let's see. Here it's telling us, yes, you need to label the image on who is the technician, you and me who are carrying them out. Then also, what image number are you giving it? What case number are you giving it? Such that you can follow it up. Many times we encourage people to save it maybe according to the date, because there is no date that can be repeated twice. A day goes to day. Today is the 9th. That is, today is 9th, yes, tomorrow is 10th. Today is 9th, and it's only 1 9th you can ever have of February 2022. Once it's gone, it's gone. So once you save that one, at least it helps you in keeping track of that information. Analyze. Once you have this copy now, you're going to analyze. And that is where all the time is taken. Because the documents are so many, you need to search. In analyzing, all you're doing is searching. So your job is to search, to recover all deleted information. Any kind of disk fragments, any kind of incomplete and complete files, any deleted files anywhere. That is your job, because you're looking for evidence. This is an example of how the analysis looks like. But of course, here we are just showing it, but we will be able to do it. Analyzing your digital evidence, you click one by one, open it. It shows you, is it this one? And that's why you need to be very specific if you're looking for something. With ProDiscover Basics, you can search, that is using that tool, and we shall use several. And by the way, there are several forensic tools online. We shall just only use about 10 of them, but there are so many others that you can even discover on your own. Instead of waiting and taking and using those which are expensive, use those which are open source. And of course, you just keep on clicking next, 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 until you search for. This is an example of an incomplete form that is in hexadecimal, or that is even in binary. So you'll still need to get another tool that can package it to make it in a readable format, ABCD, for you to pick up on that evidence. Once you're done with your evidence, write your report, save it, and preserve it. Repeatability of the findings is one of the things I mentioned. You should have the ability to repeat that item that you are currently, of that process that you have done. Because a third party, before the courts of law, will have to run that process as well. Complete the case. Oh, yes. Complete this case. We've seen repeatability, and make sure you document every single step of it. You want evidence to show either a policy was violated or not. And of course, we mentioned, always ask these questions when you're critiquing a case. The who, what, when, where, why, and the how. Those are the 5 W's and the 1 H. In asking, when you're ending and you're critiquing the case, now together with your members as the investigation team, there are questions you must ask yourselves. How could you improve the performance of this case? Did you expect the results you found? Did the case develop in ways that you didn't expect? Was the documentation as thorough as it would have been? What feedback have you received from the requesting source. Sometimes you ask people for their passwords and they refuse. They say, no, I can't share. Okay, they forget you have a password cracker. You run your password cracker, crack the passwords, proceed on with your investigation. Did you discover any new problems? If so, what? These are things that you'll have to keep documenting, and questions, just guiding questions to lead the team whenever you're handling any kind of case. Did you see any new techniques? Did you use any new techniques during the case or during your research? These are some of the things you need to do and critique. Okay, as we wind up, these are tutorials we are going to have of all these different tools. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tools. So I will upload these notes. I will share them such that you start downloading. At least download RegShot for the registrar analysis. Then we also will download Access Data Forensic Toolkit Imager. This is the one that creates images. We'll also download OS Forensics. It's an open source tool, OS Forensics. So it's only valid for 30 days. So if you're working in groups, I will encourage you, we shall have to do it in phases. Let the first person download OS Forensics, then another one will download it another time so that you don't run out of your license. Buying it is about $79 for 1 month. For a year, it's about $180. Ramp dumping, we shall also use rampit.exe. It's also a tool. So basically, these are the tools. I don't want to preempt all of them, but they are all here. I'll keep telling you which one is next, so that we are doing both the theory as well as the practical on the actual ways of picking out our forensic evidence. In summary, we've been able to define what digital forensics is. We've looked at the need for evidence to submit to the courts of law. How do we manage a public and private sector investigation and the types? The steps in the digital forensics. And of course, as I mentioned, all the way through, we shall be singing those steps. I told you that's the way, like digital systems analysis and design had steps. We shall also be singing each one of these steps every day. And that's why we've given us ourselves in groups. By next week, 16th, we are submitting. I don't know how big your groups are. Teddy will tell me for the evening class, and also you'll submit the list of the groups. We're going to describe any 10 digital forensic investigation models. So if you're in a group of 5, at least each of you should be able to describe at least 2 of them. Because these are questions you always set as well in tests and exams. You must know that just like system analysis and design, there were so many methodologies. There is a general one. However, several authors came up with several steps. Some mix them, others are in staircases, others I don't know in circular, others are in spiral, others. There are several different models. That is what you are going to look at. Otherwise, I would want to thank you very much for logging on for this evening class. With the day class, I will have a class on Friday at 2 to 4 as well. And thank you for this flexibility and adjustment for 3 to 5 for today's class. May God bless you and have a nice evening. Okay, you can unmute and say bye.